Hi everybody, I am Shannen Provan-Sloan. I'm the Collections Development Officer at Dunollie Museum, Castle and Grounds in Oban. My pronouns are she, her. And I've never remembered to give a visual description of myself before, so I'm glad I've been reminded today. I'm also white, tall, brunette, bit fat, bit tattooed, and hopefully looking cheery and not as nervous as I feel. I will settle into it the more I get into talking about things that I love. So I'm here to talk about how we've engaged with new audiences as part of a 30-month National Lottery Heritage funded project called the Sophy and White Project, the Dunollie Collections Unboxed, and how the audience and community engagement that we've been able to do with this funding will hopefully bolster Dunollie's financial resilience as it faces, quite plainly, its toughest financial position, I think, ever. So, okay, on the screen I've got a glorious landscape photo of Dunollie's iconic castle ruin. The sun shines like this just all the time in Oban, I'm sure you're all aware, but it's looking particularly proud here on this slide. So what is Dunollie? Best known as the ancestral home of the clan MacDougall, who have been there since the death of their ancestor Somerled in the mid-12th century. Evidence has shown that there has been occupation on this site for long, long before the MacDougalls have been there. Dunollie's written history dates back about 1,500 years when it was a prominent Dalriadan stronghold. We'd love to claim we were the capital, but anyone here who knows that that was Dunad, about 30 miles south of Oban, would probably have had me after this. But it was mentioned more times in the annals of Ulster than any other Dalriadan site. However, archaeology will eventually tell us the full scope of the occupation of Dunollie. We've already had a dig done in 1978 at the castle ruin that unearthed a flint scraper dating back about 5,000 years, and human remains found in the cliff face dating back about 9,000. So whilst the MacDougalls' unbroken period of occupation from the 12th century makes theirs the easiest story to tell, there's certainly been a much, much bigger story of what's happened here on this site. So up here I have two pictures of elements of our collections. At the bottom, my colleagues laughed at me because I'll include this bench in anything. This is a sheep smearing bench, not shearing, from the island of Kerrera, which is just across from Oban, long been a MacDougall stronghold, and this is part of our Hope MacDougall collection. And then at the top left of the slide there, I have a photo of our Jacobean bed hangings, which I will pap on about extensively in a minute. So our two collections, as I've mentioned, there's the Hope MacDougall Social History Collection. Hope was daughter, sister, and then aunt to the last three successive chiefs of the clan MacDougall. And she dedicated her life to documenting the social history of Scotland's Highlands and Islands, particularly people's everyday working lives. So her comparative collection includes things like agriculture, fishing communities, traditional textile production, domestic work, industries of Oban, everything. And along with that, as you can imagine, someone that was this dedicated, are hundreds of bits of research, some official documents, some scribbled on the back of envelopes and tucked into archival folders. She really, she started this when she was young, and it was all she'd done for her whole life. And she was inspired by other women historians, some of whom were family friends and mentors, such as I.F. Grant, founder of the Highland Folk Museum, and M.E.M. Donaldson, most well known for her photography and writings on the Highlands and Islands customs. When Hope passed away in 1998, her collections and her entire life's work became homeless. And her aunt, who by that point was the 31st chief of the clan MacDougall, insisted that they come to live in the 1745 house at Dunollie, which was at this point empty. One staff member and a team of volunteers then undertook a 5-year retrospective documentation process of her entire collection. And throughout that time, relationships were built with the family. The MacDougall of Dunollie Preservation Trust was officially formed. A large portion of the site was passed over to the trust to be cared for, and little treasures from the attic started to be shown to the staff members that they thought would be interested in. And that led us on to the family connection, the MacDougall collection. And it's comprised mainly of historic textiles with a small selection of Jacobean weaponry. Most notably, we've got a few things within the textile collection that we're pretty sure are of national significance. One being what we think is the only example of a 5-piece Highland Revival tartan suit, which is a bit of a mouthful when you're nervous and sweaty, which comprises jacket, waistcoat, kilt, plaid, and trews with little feet. And I've been assured that he didn't wear all 5 at once. It wasn't trews under the kilt. It was probably one or the other. The suit was worn by 26th Chief Admiral John McDougall to meet King George in Edinburgh in 1822, and we also have in our collection the beautiful dress his sister Mary Jane wore, a gorgeous ivory silk satin gown with iridescent beetle wing trim and McDougall tartan round her sleeves. But my favourite, my Jacobean bed hangings. These were found shoved in a pillowcase in the attic of Dunollie House in 2011. A discovery so exciting it made the Oban Times. I know you probably all receive that wherever you live, get it mailed down, but it was in there. These have been dated to around 1690. We know that the clan's 21st chief fought at the Battle of Killiecrankie in 1689, and his son went on to fight in 1715 and 1719. They are embellished with beautiful crewel work embroidered indigo Prince of Wales feathers, an iconic Jacobite symbol. But what makes them so incredible, I'll show you this. Oh, I've broke it. Help. Thank you. Beautiful up-close photo of my bed hangings, just so you can see a bit about what I'm talking about. But the inconsistencies in quality of stitching suggest that they were made by many hands. All the women of the house come together to support a political cause with the tools most often at their disposal, crafts. And when we talk about how much we need to continue to find money to care for our collections and share their stories, these are the kind of things that we're talking about. We've got 2 collections which tell the stories of Scotland's people in 2 very different ways, all under one roof at a tiny museum in Oban. Right, so what is the Sophy and White project? On the screen I've got this very beautiful beetle wing dress that I was just talking about in a display cabinet, also with a silk plaid of the McDougall tartan. So our project, as I've said, it's a 30-month National Lottery Heritage funded project which will be running until July 2026. It included the money for 2 staff, myself, Collections Development Officer, and my colleague Anna, who was the Learning Engagement Officer, who's never once agreed to do any of these public speaking gigs. And our main aims were to safeguard, contextualise and maximise the impact of our collections, including stabilising them in their physical locations. Basically, we undertook a massive audit and review of our collections, updated and created new documentation, and extended their reach through 4 community-driven projects focusing on different aspects of our vast collections. Our aims included local events, digital content, community groups, and connections with other organisations. So the first thing we done was create a volunteer group because we really needed a hand. On screen is one of our volunteers, Helen, demonstrating a bit of spinning at one of our events that I'll mention shortly. So we put out a recruitment call in all the usual places, held an open day, put out our best pieces to try and lure them in and pretend that they weren't just going to go through box after box of bits of lace or old pieces of wood. We were like, oh, do you love these beautiful gowns? Volunteer for our collections team. But they have helped us enormously. The first thing we done, again, thanks to the funding that's behind this project, is we were able to reach out to Glencoe Folk Museum and ask if anyone there had the capacity to provide some object handling training for our volunteers. Thankfully, Katrina agreed and spent 2 half-days providing our volunteers with training on best practice for object handling and documentation, and they undertook that with the social history room right away. That's no small feat. I started at Dunollie on a 12-month apprenticeship backed by MGS and Charts, so shout out to them, probably in the room, thank you. And I didn't even get halfway through that room in 12 months. So, but more than just many pairs of hands, we understand at Dunollie how pivotal it is to have volunteers who bring unique skills, knowledge and life experience, and especially with engaging with social history collections around the dates of what a lot of Miss Hope's things are. They remember them, or their parents had these things, or they knew of her collection when she was alive if they've got an interest in heritage. So they can really bring that to what we are doing, and we value that so much. They undertook textiles collection care training, but more recently undertook a training provided by Catherine Gillis, Dunollie founding father, my personal hero, on how to really drag the story out of a historic textile. So what are we looking for? What can it tell us? You know, you can date things by their colour, their shape, or is it imitating that period? And through that, this is one of our biggest achievements. The majority of our textile collection, as it's been received by the family throughout years that we've had no collection staff, is undocumented. It's boxed and then it's been abandoned. We've created more than 150 new object records to make our textile collection so much more accessible to any staff and anyone who may come to visit, to research, or to engage with it. So we then hosted our first event open to the public. I also had to speak at this because Anna doesn't like public speaking. On the screen here, I have just a photo of the audience from that day while one of our speakers is talking in front of PowerPoint at the front. It was a sharing stories event inspired by the work of Hope McDougall and the women who have inspired her as well. We put out a call for papers. The brief was basically just anything that talked about women's contribution to documenting Scottish history, and we were absolutely over the moon at the response. And that really helped shape the structure of the day. We had 8 short talks, lunch, and then in the afternoon we had some live demonstrations of relevant things like spinning, basket weaving, and natural dyeing. I was in the audience in awe listening to these speakers, who included Dr. Ailsa Hutton on birds, baskets, and the SWRI. I'd said yes to that proposal before I opened it. Dr. Nairi Finlay on the archaeological process of pioneering women like Marion Campbell, and Professor Hugh Cheap on IF Grant, who founded the Highland Folk Museum, amongst many other things. Open Common Good Fund, another small organisation, reached out and helped fund this day, allowed us to have a photographer and who took this lovely photo, so shout out to them. But what this really done was get started with what we're talking about. Being able to host this event helped us reach a new audience who aren't usually engaged with Dunollie, who hopefully will come back again and again, or maybe they'll volunteer with us, or they'll support us in new ways as we face a really difficult time. And then, Stitch and Spin, this is my favourite photo to put in. All of these women are fuming that I've put this in here, but they have all said yes. A photo of our community group, Stitch and Spin, who are all doing some knitting, and there's many a takeaway coffee cup, and that Rogue Diet Coke is actually mine. So this is part of our second sub-project, Wear It or Sleep in It, which seeks to engage with Dunollie's collection of plaids, blankets and shawls. This is my favourite of the subsections because it's the one that really crosses over both of our collections. As the plaids are in the family side, they're, you know, expensive, gorgeous, historic, hard tartan that's met the king. It's all very nobility. Whereas blankets and shawls, those are things that Hope was collecting to demonstrate the way they were being made, these industries that were so important to Scotland that she was determined she would note down lest they be sort of lost forever. So we launched Stitch and Spin in an effort to bring women together to share these skills, to learn new skills, and most recently we have come together to all create a product for sale in our on-site shop. And we chose to go with coasters that we knitted with the patterns of fishermen's gansies. We have a couple of gansies in the collection. They obviously really reflect the lives and traditions of Scotland's fishing communities. And it's been really amazing to put together a product that will help create revenue for Dunollie, but that's like straight from the heart of Miss Hope's life work. So my Stitch and Spinners are really the highlight of my week, if I'm supposed to say that, maybe not. And most recently, we had a craft and heritage event at Dunollie just on Saturday gone. And on the screen here is said tartan suit that I mentioned earlier. We didn't have all of it on display. Where would one put that many pieces? But there is a gorgeous, high, stiff collar with some beautiful crewel work embroidery, red tartan jacket, which is very McDougall. It's just very West Coast. And then buttons looking lovely and polished. So we had the one-day pop-up exhibition on Saturday, as I say, to celebrate the elements of this sort of sub-project. We displayed the suit, We also displayed an absolutely gorgeous paisley shawl, very fine paisley shawl, owned by Hope's great aunt Kitty, who we think would have worn it at the height of its fashion in about the mid-1800s. And we were also really pleased to display openly for the first time a spinning wheel, which belonged to the last baby girl to be born in the castle, Mary, who was born in 1741. And if you think I'm nervous up here, imagine me carrying that spinning wheel from the storeroom through the whole site to display it, legs shaking. So we had the bar open, food being served, and also some of our stitch and spinners demonstrating crafts and allowing visitors to have a little go. The spinning wheels are always popular. We weren't spinning with Mary's spinning wheel. What is really amazing about being able to do this is with Dunollie's rapidly rising costs, we're not able to put stuff like this on. This was a niche event which brought in people which we knew would be interested in what we had and what we do. But if we didn't have the funding behind this project to allow us to absorb the cost, we can't put stuff like this on. The ticket prices would make it unrealistic. And once again, we were able to engage with new audiences, people who wanted to join Stitch and Spin, people who wanted to volunteer, who couldn't have come along if we couldn't have had this event. So what's next for Dunollie? Here is a photo of my beloved Miss Hope McDougall. I think it's only one of two that I've ever seen. She preferred to be behind the camera and not in front of it. And on the other side, one of our favourite pieces, the brooch of Lorne, long rumoured to have been stolen from Robert the Bruce, etc., etc. So our two sub-projects that we've got left to do. Seed is going to explore the impact of changing agricultural methods in Argyll and the Isles. We have quite a large collection of agricultural tools, and it'll help us have a reason to get those out because I'm the only one that's interested in them so far, and sort of ask questions about sustainability and the sustainability of food production going forward. We hope to partner with an organisation called Green Shoots, who run a community garden in a different part of Dunollie's site that's not cared for by the Trust. And we'll also be able to turn over our temporary exhibition room at Dunollie. This is something we would love to do every winter while we're closed, but again, due to the costs associated with even creating a small exhibition, we've not done that since winter 2023, and even that was on a shoestring budget. If any of you have visited or do visit, you'll see lots of things I printed off in the office and then spray glued onto foam. It's all a bit grim. So that'll allow us to do a slightly more bougie job, and we'll also create a digital version of that exhibition, which we can share with our worldwide supporters. As with many places in Scotland where we tell the story of a family, we have overseas McDougalls who feel a really strong connection to Dunollie, and they support us more loudly when they can really understand what it is we're working on. If they can see we've got this project, we are trying to tell this bit of story about your history, they can find themselves getting behind that, and that can be really, really important to Dunollie getting things done. And Cobalt Blue, there is a summary, but remains as much of a mystery to me as it does to you. Maybe if you're unfortunate to see me speak again, I'll be able to tell you what happened with that, but at the minute, I'm blanking. So, time for me to stop waffling. This is the last thing I'm going to say. What has the real impact been on our organisation from receiving this funding and what we've been able to do with it? On the screen here, I have our beautiful 1745 house museum, a low white building in a sort of maze of other heights of white buildings. So to go straight back to the beginning, it allowed us to reach out to Glencoe Folk Museum and have them provide really excellent training to our volunteers that we wouldn't have been able to do ourselves. It allowed us to bring together the academic speakers at our Scottish Women Collectors event, who really brought to life women's contributions to the documentation of Scottish history. Another thing that's really exciting that I've not mentioned yet, and I'm hoping a few of you know why this is so exciting, we have finally been able to move our object database from a version of AdLib that looks like it was made before I was born to eHive. So our worldwide supporters, we'll finally be able to browse, and so can all of you, because I know you're just chomping at the bit, our entire collection from the comfort of their own home. And to put it plainly, my job, Dunollie's not had any paid collection staff since Catherine Gillis undertook the retrospective documentation in the early 2000s. We have all of this incredible stuff. We have all of these ways that people could engage. There aren't the staff that can be dedicated to do it. This is my third year at Dunollie. When our funding ends in July 2026, that'll very likely be the end of my time there. I have researched, written, displayed, guided toured, shop coordinated, duty managed, documented, and eaten, slept, and breathed Dunollie. And it never feels like enough time to tell enough people how cool it is. So my biggest hope is that we can have maximised our time here, maximised this funding, and hopefully engaged enough new people in enough new ways that we can see Dunollie through this blip, and more people can see it for the incredible place that it is. And the last people that I need to mention, sorry, I left them till after me, are our volunteers, because their work can't be overlooked. Our collections volunteers teams have made an incredible, incredible start on what is a huge process, especially creating the new documentation. I hope that they continue to do so for a really long time. And the stitch and spinners have vowed that as long as the heaters are on the terrace and the coffee and biscuits are flowing, they will be at Dunollie bringing our collections to life through traditional crafts. I really hope to think that Miss Hope McDougall would love to see the very crafts that she fought to document, fought to keep from being lost to history, brought to life once again in the grounds of her ancestral home. So that's it. National Art Heritage Fund, thank you. Our collections have been overlooked, neglected and shut away for too long, and finally being allowed to tell their stories. There's something for everyone at Dunollie, from mundane and everyday to Jacobite rebels and upstanding nobility. Bringing it to life's been an absolute privilege, and without this funding, our collections would still be shut away in their storerooms waiting to be discovered. But now here I am talking to you about all of them. So thank you so much. That's been me. I'm away.